On this play, we see Braden Coots driving up the right side of the ice, attempting to carry the puck into the Oilers' zone. But he doesn't have a lot of space. The Oilers have 4 guys back, and the attacking defender has good gap control, where Coots decides to drive into the body of the defender and attempt a drop pass. Wait, no! He instead drops it to his back foot, absorbs the contact from the defender, kicks the puck back up to his forehand, and now completes a perfect drop pass to Drew O'Connor, where he now has the time and space to create a play. Now, unfortunately for Coots, he did get the puck to O'Connor and not a guy like Garland or Hughes, but this subtle yet genius, silky zone entry goes to show that this 18-year-old kid is far beyond his years in terms of hockey IQ and poise. And don't get me wrong, yes, I'm a Canucks fan, we get it. This kid is not going to walk into the NHL and just light it up, as I'll be surprised if he stays on the team for longer than the 9-game stint. But with 4 points in 4 games, playing in a bottom 6 role, the kid has been better than great. He has surpassed every single expectation in a bottom 6 role with limited power play time. He's had more or just as many points in less time played than McDavid, Patrick Kane, Barzal, Mitchkov, the list goes on, as this right here is Braden Coots, the Vancouver Canucks 15th overall pick from just several months ago, and somebody who should not be in the NHL.
Center ice. Flaman's pass picked off by Coots. He'll break in wide to his right. At the right circle, Coots carries in with a drag shot, scores! Coots breaks the goose egg for Seattle.
As this tweet right here summarizes the situation perfectly. 14 teams are going to regret not taking Coots. Mario Lemieux is his floor. Now, obviously I'm joking, but the whole idea of an 18-year-old prospect who wasn't a top pick in the draft somehow making the opening night roster made me think, how often does this truly happen? For the Vancouver Canucks, an 18-year-old hasn't made the opening night roster in 35 years. So when they do make the team, was it a mistake? Did they end up blossoming into stars? I there's a real argument here, and I completely get it, that it is crazy to rush any 18-year-old into the league outside the upper echelon first overall pick prospects, so like a McDavid or Connor Bedard, as we have seen the downside time and time again of what happens when you rush a prospect. And well, after looking into the numbers, I would discover something shocking. And today's video is sponsored by my friends at the VHL Forum. As the Victory Hockey League is a place for hockey fans. You can create a player, join a team, and simulate a Hall of Fame career. You can earn weekly experience points by engaging with other hockey fans by writing articles about your team or player, upgrade the stats you want to improve for your player, and jump into head-to-head matchup simulations with hockey fans around the world. It's a lot of fun, and it's ran by a great team. Boris Bonebreaker is currently leading the league in points, and how could I forget about my man Johnny Tsunami, and with the Seattle Bears and Malmo Nighthawks leading the league in points? Maybe you watching this video right now are the next Johnny freaking Tsunami. So whether you like the simulation, or maybe you want to kick back on the forums with some engaging hockey talk with fans, VHLforum.com is the place. So join 6,000 active members today by clicking the link down below. Thank you so much to VHL Forum for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so a couple qualifications here. I wanted to specifically look at 18-year-olds who weren't top 5 picks who made the NHL roster. Is it surprising that Barkov as a 2nd overall pick made the Panthers as an 18-year-old? Of course not. Yeah, he wasn't a 1st overall pick, but he was a big body 2-way center who lit up the Finnish league.
Unable to come up with it. Got it now! What a play! Beautiful goal! Alexander Barkov!
However, it was shocking when an 18-year-old Ryan O'Reilly made the opening night roster, considering that the man was a 2nd-round pick, only for him to blossom into a Selke winner, Stanley Cup champ, a playoff MVP. How in the hell did this guy slide to the 2nd round, my god? Because from a typical draft class, there's a big drop-off from the 1st to 2nd pick in terms of the odds that that player becomes a star. One of the biggest drop-offs occurs after the top 5. I also wanted to pinpoint players who made the actual NHL roster, and not just the 9-game stint. On top of that, I also wanted to look at players who have played at least 3 seasons. And okay, on this graphic, we have every forward who made the NHL lineup who were 18 and not a top 5 pick from the past 25 years. So it makes you think, yeah, they made the roster, but maybe they weren't a big piece for success that year. Maybe there was an injury or they're just playing on a bad team. And well, they would put up on average 43 points in a full 82-game season. Not bad at all. Not a Calder winning average by any means here, but that is a far better season than 95% of all NHL rookies. Okay, so next I wanted to look at their best seasons. What was their peak? Did these players truly blossom into stars? Or was the ability to crack the lineup more so due to their 2-way abilities, to where they could play some PK because they weren't viewed as massive liabilities on the defensive end? And well, in their peaks, they would average 84 points. That is a very good player, an all-star. On top of that, they would also win a collective 14 NHL awards. Granted, 9 of those were from Bergeron, and a total of 3 Stanley Cups. But here's the thing, not one of these players would become a bust. 0. Like seriously, the quote quote-unquote worst player from this crop, and by a wide margin, is Cole Sillinger, who is still only 22 and hasn't scraped his potential. The high end of these players are, you know, Patrice Bergeron,
Samsonov, one of the overtime goal-scoring heroes for the Bees in the regular season.
Ryan O'Reilly,
and now Anderson in the neighborhood as we approach.
just some guy named David Pastrnak.
Chara spins it to Krug, the shot, save, rebound. David Pastrnak has his first National Hockey League goal.
One of the most obvious trends here, aside from guys like Pasta, Sam Gagner, Jeff Skinner, is that all these players are known for their defensive play style, which makes sense. What is hands down the biggest hurdle in terms of prospect development and making the roster is defense. Because unless you're McDavid, Bedard, or a high-end offensive player who was most likely the first overall pick, the only spot for you is to be slotted into the bottom six. The bottom six in today's game has evolved into a shutdown role, with the ability to chip in on offense every once in a while. Therefore, if you don't have NHL-ready defense, the ability to play in the penalty kill, there's a good chance that you're gonna be a big liability, especially when you consider the current environment of the league. As there are so many teams who missed the playoffs last year, who I would not be surprised if they made a good playoff run this year. The Rangers, Canucks, Red Wings, Nashville Predators, hell, even the Buffalo Sabres, they have the pieces on paper. Therefore, if you're in that bubble where one goal, one win or loss could be the difference between playoffs and not making it, think about the Calgary Flames. How could you chance a young prospect in the bottom six who can't play defense? You can't. There's way too much on the line here. Even think about what happened to Leon freaking Draisaitl, as it was obvious that he was a special prospect. He would then be rushed into the Oilers' bottom six after the draft. The man got little to no opportunities and played with some bums, where he would go on to put up 9 points in his first 37 games on top of being scratched. And I mean, clearly it didn't impact the potential here, but it absolutely can, because on the other hand, you need to provide opportunity to allow your prospects to develop. As many people say, the NHL is not a developmental league, and they're right, but at some point, you need to give some opportunity. Alexei Lafreniere playing in a bottom six role has always been mind-boggling to me. Yeah, Chris Kreider was a better net front presence, but my god, give the kid a consistent stretch on the PP, he was your first overall pick. Now, think about Braden Coots. Going into the draft, he was known for having a big motor, high hockey IQ, and a strong commitment to the defensive side of the game, where in the preseason he would play several shifts against McDavid, where he actually did pretty damn well. His line did get scored on once, but aside from that, he's an 18-year-old who's just facing off against kids who just got their driver's licenses, to then facing off one of the greatest players in NHL history in his prime, in Leon Draisaitl, where he held his own. If a kid like this already has this baseline, how in the hell could he possibly continue to develop his defense at a high level in the WHL? Like, imagine you're a grade 10 student who just got tasked to write your PhD dissertation and you got an A. What is there now to gain from going back to high school? Because when you think about the developmental curve of a prospect, many CHL prospects have been caught in an awkward place after the draft, as they go from making leaps and bounds in terms of development from ages 16 to 18 to having not much more to prove after they get drafted. And in the past, because of rules surrounding the inability to go to the NCAA, these players were stuck in purgatory, which is why most of the top prospects going to the NCAA, or those who were drafted out of Europe, don't tend to get rushed into the league. Because out of all the 18-year-old debuts we went over in the stat, only 3 of them didn't play in the CHL. Yeah, Logan Cooley could have made the Coyotes, but he had the ability to go up a level in competition and continue to develop that well-rounded game in college hockey. And don't get me wrong, the CHL is a phenomenal developmental league, as the majority of the greatest players in NHL history came out of the CHL, but at the same time, it's chaotic if not just straight up sloppy hockey compared to the NHL or other professional leagues. Hell, a player like Nate Danielson a couple years ago was caught in a very similar situation, as he played extremely well after the draft to the Red Wings. There were stretches where he was arguably their best forward. However, Detroit didn't want to risk rushing the kid, and they sent him back down to the juniors, where back in the WHL, his development would begin to stagnate. So then, I'll ask you this. If your team had a prospect who lit up the preseason at age 18, would you want your team to give him a shot? Or is this just a dumb move that hinders the player's potential? But then again, the players we went over, they've done pretty well. Thank you so much to the VHL Forum for sponsoring today's video. Please go check them out down below. They're great guys. I'd really appreciate a like on this video, and as always, thanks for watching.